Grand Rising Life Force, and welcome to Speak Pro Radio. My name is Stefan Rao, more commonly known as Tank, and this is the Life Force Network. And today we become movie critics, it appears, because we're going to talk a little bit about the latest Trump situation in the world of politics. And we're also going to talk about some really compelling things that were spoken of on the World Situation Report. So I'm kind of... I'm not the most excited about this because I'm actually just tired of talking about things that I just don't really give a lot of credibility to. So for anybody who lives in a cave, Donald Trump was giving Donald Trump, who's running for president again, he was giving a speech recently, I guess. I'm not sure even where it was. I think it was in Pennsylvania. And while giving his speech, allegedly, there was an individual who snuck up onto a rooftop and sniped him. He took a shot at Trump and, it skimmed his face and his ear. And Trump went down and apparently lost his shoes, I guess. And then after losing his shoes, here he is, right? He lost his shoes and he stood up to the crowd despite a bullet just ripping through his ear, and he fist pumped the crowd and said, it was basically like, yeah, like Trump, we're gonna get him, right? And basically did this whole thing, right? So it's been kind of a melee ever since, right? All of the algorithms and no matter where you are now are talking about this event, right? This thing, they tried to take out Donald Trump, right? And there are people that are coming to Jesus because of this, right? Because Donald Trump was saved. It's because Donald Trump did not die, God intervened, and because of that, I am now going to be saved by Jesus, right? And here to talk about this with me is Lauda. How are you, Lauda?
I'm good. How are you, Mr. Rao?
I'm good. This topic, I'm almost trumped out for the most part, but I find this topic to be fascinating. And you, who are very much a spiritual, loving person, right? And you're always into all of these deep, esoteric, amazing things. You have basically indulged yourself and basically consumed yourself with this to understand it, right? And you've done really tried to research this and you've looked up all types of things, and it's amazing. So I basically, when we were doing our briefing before the show, we were going through these things for like the past hour, all of these different things, and you were showing me all these different things. So what is kind of most compelling to you in all this stuff that you found? Besides our dog barking while we're doing the show.
Look, I think it's really clear to see that this was
one moment, please. We're going to show a video. We'll show a video to start. It's not because we're quieting our dog down. We're going to show this video because that's what we're going to do, because we got this really together, as one has nothing to do with the other. So watch this video. This guy talks about some stuff. I think it's really, really interesting stuff. Okay.
Something is way, way, way off here with the whole attempted Trump assassination. Please tell me I'm not the only one. My gut has been screaming at me all night. When I first heard that there was an attempted assassination, my heart sunk. Violence is never the answer. I immediately thought, is Trump okay? It doesn't matter where we lie on political scales, on belief. It does not fucking matter. Violence is never the answer, and it makes me sick, absolutely sick, that that's what we come to in this goddamn country. And as I started to watch the footage come out, I was curious, as all of us are and were, and I started to watch, and immediately saw and felt something off. Now, before any of you jump on my case, I will happily, one, eat my words, and you can believe me if you want to, or not. But if Biden was in that position, and I saw that exact same footage, I would be just as goddamn critical. If I felt something was off, I would feel something is off. And I would watch that footage and go, what the? The way he grabs his ear, the way he ducks, the crowd behind him, if it grazed his ear, those tons of people behind him didn't have that big of a reaction. They slowly were like, There were some smiles. Let's just focus on grabbing the ear. I've been stung in the ear by a bee, and that's not what you do. You don't just go. It's shock. It's what just happened. I'll happily eat my words, happily, but my prediction is this is going to come out eventually as a coup. Something smells way off. Something seems way off. And I'm trusting my gut on this one. I'm trusting my gut, and if it's wrong, I'll go, hey, gut, you were wrong. And I'll happily eat my words. But even the footage, the zoom up on his ear, if he got grazed in the ear, his ear is fully intact, people. If a bullet grazed your ear, at least the tip would be mangled. This does not add up. And we have every right to criticize after seeing the footage. And for those of you about to come out, like I said, I don't care who it is. I don't care where you land on the political scale. If I saw the exact same footage of Biden, I would be just as critical. For those of you that might come out and be like, hey, somebody just tried to assassinate the president. Okay, yes, that's an extreme circumstance, but we have the right to be critical of this government. We have the right to be critical of Mr. Trump, who is a felon. I wouldn't put it past him or his team. He's a dishonest person. Biden is as well. The government in general has lost the trust of its people. And so we have every right to criticize. We have every right to go, to even fathom, something's off. I don't know if I trust this. Something's off. It doesn't line up. It does not line up. CIA saw the shooter apparently, and then just waited for him to shoot. Something reeks. And I'm trusting my gut, and I would implore you all to do the same. Just as if Biden was in that position, because something is way off.
Okay, well, thank
So
you,
what are your
Captain Obvious. I think what that guy had to say, the shirtless expert that we're using from TikTok, I thought that was very, I think he had some great points.
I thought he had great points. That was why I chose that. I thought he had great points, the things that he was saying. And one of the things that he did say was critical of this government. I think that's something that we all are critical of all our governments. And I think that's really important to point out. It's not just Trump. It's not just Biden. You know, Robert, what's his name? Kennedy.
RFK
what's his
Jr.
name?
Talk about?
No, Robert, the guy that's running for
RFK
as
Jr.
well.
RFK Jr. is the guy's name. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's his name.
Even him as well.
Well, of course, we should be critical of everyone. That's our right. We have every right to be critical of whoever we want, right?
Yes.
Now, this is kind of what the beauty is, or at least it's supposed to be about being American, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we are allowed to criticize our government. In fact, the government draws its authority, it draws its power from the people, right? So the government has no power if we don't give it to them.
Yeah.
So this is the great stage that, we're on now. And this is actually it's ridiculous, right? There was a time where you could stage a scene like this and there wouldn't be, a million viewers with cameras ready to go to immediately post to their TikTok, to their YouTube, to whatever else, right? But in this day and age, you really can't. The problem is too much information creates a lot of opportunity for false information, right? I did this in college. I did this in college where you had we were in a classroom and I had this great professor, and out of nowhere, this person runs in the classroom, right, with a mask on and like a ski hat and gloves, and they grab something like a laptop off the table and they run out of the room. And the professor is like, "Wait!" And then he stops and he looks at the class and he goes, "Okay, what did you just see? Describe." And the test was describe what you just saw, right? So everyone writes down on their paper. They write down. It was a white guy who came in with a blue hat on and a gray mask. Someone else would say, it was a Chinese guy with a gray hat on and a white mask. Everyone saw something happen, but no one could exactly say what it was. Even though we were all in the same place, we all saw the same thing, but we all had a different perspective or a different account of what that thing was. So, first off, for anybody out there who's skeptical about this, as you should be, the number one thing is, why do you do something like this in a big public forum? Because everyone's going to have a different account. It's going to create all this curiosity. We don't even like to talk about this stuff, and even we're talking about it, right? So everybody's going to talk about this stuff. So it generates a lot of publicity. It's going to generate a lot of patriotism. Like, they tried to take out the general, right? They tried to take out Trump, the commander in chief kind of thing.
Well, we were going to do a show about this on the weekend as soon as all of this happened. And we kind of went into a little bit of a panic going, there is no way I'm going to do a show and actually put more fear out there, or not give a solution. Because, I was just trying to think, what's the solution here? I see a lot of problems. And I see that if we go and say, hey, listen, Trump's this, Biden's this, and Robert F. Kennedy is this, saying that they're no good, but they're all working for the same team. Just recently, a phone call was leaked. Actually, I think it just came out with Robert F. Kennedy and Trump, and he's even gone and said he apologizes for leaking that video. It's not his, it was his son and someone else, like a videographer. We have the article pulled up as well. Just that in itself, I'm like, I was thinking about this. How can we put this out there without putting more fear out there? Because all you hear, and I don't know about you, but on my TikTok, it was just fear, death, die, disgusting Trump, disgusting Biden. It was crazy. So when it comes to something like this, it's like, well, I think it's great to talk about it and say, this is what's going on, touch base with it. However, there's a lot of lies out there. So you know about this a little bit. What do you think about this, about Trump, about Robert F. Kennedy, about Biden, about what is going on here? What's the solution?
Well, I think you're talking about two different topics. Okay. So let's talk about the first topic, right? The problem, the whole intention of this type of thing is to generate fear, panic, and division.
Yeah.
Right? Now, this is how they have run the world forever. You keep people constantly divided. You keep people constantly afraid. There's nothing really stable that they see that's publicly being broadcast. So how do you take away the fear? Stop thinking that any of these people have anything to do with your life. They do not.
Okay, but how about the people that are the Trump supporters? We were talking about this. We were talking about how, if you look at this, honestly, there's a lot of Trump supporters. There's a lot of, we'll stick with the gunshot, right? So not with the Kennedy guy.
No, RFK Jr., Robert F. Kennedy
Robert
Jr.
F. Kennedy.
Robert F. Kennedy, RFK Jr. So
yeah.
he is the darling candidate, to be honest, right? He's the guy. Well, I'm going to tell you why, because he's beloved by anybody who has a kid who's ever been vaccine damaged, by anybody who didn't want their kid to be forced medicated, right? Forced vaccinated. RFK Jr. worked directly with ICANN, right? And I forget the other guy's name that he partnered with, but they had these monumental lawsuits against vaccines to basically say, the damages that they do, that they've never been proven safe or effective, that you can't impose this on people, that people should have the choice, right? And he's done it in a way to be very like, I'm not against vaccines. They just need to be safe and effective, right? Now, so from that standpoint, he was like the voice of, and you have to be careful in this circle, because I was very much part of this. I have no problem saying I am an anti-vaxxer. I am very much an anti-vaxxer. Vaccines are absolutely unproven. They are not good for you in any way. And I don't care what anybody has to say about it. And I mean all vaccines. None of them are good for you. They're not good for our kids. Literally, it's ridiculous how much toxins are in these things and how much damage they do. But people want to deny that, okay? Because they all think they're safe and effective, even though that's never been shown in any clinical study. But anyways, so RFK Jr. is very famous for that. That's where he got his fame. As a lawyer, right? He's also a lawyer, right? Now, but so he's one of the candidates for president. And I'll be honest, in most cases, I'd be like, yeah, I mean, of all the guys to vote for him, right? Like he would have been my guy to vote for.
Really?
Yeah. I would have, I mean, several years ago, I would have.
Okay. I thought you were saying now. I'm like, now you would vote for him? Really?
I wouldn't vote. If I went to vote, I'd vote for myself. I certainly wouldn't vote for any candidate that's out there. As much as I would vote for a gaggle of monkeys randomly pressing buttons, because it doesn't matter. Because your vote doesn't actually do anything, right? The election has always been a selection, right? Now, that being said, we're kind of moving to a different topic, of something that Kimberly Ann Gogan did say a little while ago on the World Situation Report. I believe she actually supports Jill Stein. So I'm excited to see what happens with the elections in November, because she basically said that, that she's taking control of these false ballot machines, right? These fake voting machines. And she can basically sway the election any way she wants now. So you coming back on to talk to me? Okay. So anyways, RFK Jr., I liked RFK Jr. quite a bit. Like, I in that I've actually talked to, I've talked to quite a few people who have worked with him. However, I have other information about him as well. And I also know that when the big vaccine lawsuits were going on in New York State, what I was saying, what I did was I was actually speaking throughout New York at the same time. And I was going to talk to a lot of these groups that were gathering together who didn't want to have their kids forced to be vaccinated with the MMR vaccine at the time. And most of these were moms who had kids that were injured by vaccines. And so one of the meetings I didn't go to, and they kind of fed me in with a live feed. And I listened for certain key topics from these lawyers, right? The ICANN lawyers who were working with RFK Jr. And they were suing to, stop the vaccines. And they never talked about informed consent, right? They talked about the clinical issues. They never talked about the fact that you're violating the actual Constitution at the time of New York, but you're violating people's freedom to choose. People have the right to make these choices, right? And there was one other key topic, and I'm like, as soon as they did that, I told them, I said, they are intentionally losing the lawsuit. I told the vaccine moms this, they're intentionally losing. And they, in fact, did just that. They got all the way up to the point where they could take it to the Supreme Court, and they bailed out, right? And so they changed nothing. So that's the kind of integrity. Now, don't get me wrong, RFK has gone allegedly and done these things, but it's changed nothing. His efforts have changed nothing, right? So the idea would be put him in as president. Why? So he can change nothing there? right? So our Jr. has not really accomplished. I mean, he's got these groundbreaking cases, but they've done nothing. So, and him and Trump are friends, by the way. They are friends. Like Trump is very close to the Kennedy family, and both the Kennedy and the Trump family, I hate to break anybody's heart out there, but they are part of the Order of the Black Sun. It's a secret society. It's been known for many, many years. When JFK was president, he was trying to take over the Federal Reserve, right? Get rid of the Federal Reserve and give power back to the Treasury. All that was infighting between the Dragon families and the Black Sun. That's all it was. You know, he was just trying to take over. That's why they took him out, basically. Right? But they all work together. So here's the problem. All of that is nonsense if you don't know the background behind it. It just sounds crazy. It's just too much. Like, what's the point? So in the general talk, coming back to Donald Trump and JFK or RFK Jr. So they're talking. Now, here's how you know they're all in cahoots. So this is like a movie criticism, right? Okay, here's what happened in the movie. Because none of it's real. None of it is real is the problem. So they hit the RFK Jr.'s son leaks footage. Bullshit. He didn't leak footage, right? They strategically planned it out to put out footage. He's in the hotel room talking on a phone where he has an American flag against the wall. Like, why? Why is there an American flag in your hotel room that you were like, I can't go anywhere without my American? Like, nobody does that. Nobody does that, okay? Not even if you're running for president and it wasn't leaked footage. You're just showing how patriotic you are. And you're hoping that no one will call you out on how ridiculous that is, right? But nobody does that, okay? And the hotel wasn't designed that way. So they're having a conversation back and forth. And one of the things that Trump brings up is how bad the vaccines are.
Yeah. And the things that it...
Yeah. I mean, this is the same guy who led Warp Speed. Remember Operation Warp Speed and how many lives they saved by pushing out vaccines in the middle of a pandemic? The worst possible thing that you could have done. That death rates didn't even rise. As a matter of fact, death rates went down during COVID. Oh, I'm not allowed to say that on here, am I? I don't care. Death rates went down, as well as, not only did they go down, they actually cured the influenza. Like, there was no influenza. There was no flu. There was no emphysema. When just, the pandemic was out there, they didn't exist. They did not even exist. It wasn't until the vaccine was introduced, then death rates started to climb. That's why when you look at the information from the Cleveland Clinic has shown irrefutable evidence that more vaccine equals more death, more sickness, more hospitalization, period. That is an absolute fact. YouTube, if you try to take that down, then you are part of the problem. You're part of the problem. You are hiding valuable information from people that is valid and true and has been proven by clinical evidence that anyone can research publicly. So if you take this down, it's because you are part of the problem, which we all know anyways. But anyways, we'll see how long we last after I said that, because you know how these things go. But okay. So, but here's Trump, Mr. Warp Speed, right? Pushing the vaccines out on the phone with RFK Jr. talking about vaccines are bad. Well, which one is it? Like, where do you stand? So I think he was actually talking to RFK Jr. about dropping out of the race, I think is what he was doing. I don't know if you caught the whole.
No, that was speculations. So, that was speculations. But it was in regards to, they were talking about his gunshot, and they were talking about the vaccines.
Okay. All right. So let's come back to the shooting, right? We are not going to spread fear about this. Here is what you can be excited about with this. The production value is so low because the budget is so low for the Order of the Black Sun, the Dragon families, the deep state, whatever the order, they have such little money that this production is terrible, right? Now, I will say this is the money shot though, right here. I'm just going to show this quick. Okay. This shot how money is this shot? Who is the amazing photographer who happened to be here at this exact moment to be there? Now, what if this guy had a gun? Right? Because he's got the perfect shot. Now, here's the pictures that were put out there that people are getting mad about, right? This is the same shot. Like, and see how these guys are smiling? This is fake, by the way. This is fake. I'm not sure
about that.
why we put the logo there over his smile, but this guy over here is smiling as well. Okay. Our strategy on that we got to work on that. But see this guy, how these guys are circled and they're smiling. Okay, in reality, this is the same shot. They're not smiling, right? They're pushing to get the president out of here. They're not smiling. Somebody fabricated that. So people out there, like people are doing TikTok videos. That's why you can't trust anything. People are out there saying, these guys are smiling. That would have been really bad. That would have been really bad.
Yeah, like I did see a lot of videos with them smiling. However, when we just started going through everything, I just kept seeing this one. And so I'm like, well, nowadays you can do anything on the computer and change voices with AI. I'm like, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, they do this stuff because what they want, the more people that criticize things that didn't actually happen, right? What you do is it makes it so as you criticize it, it becomes ridiculous to criticize it, right? So then anybody who dares question it, right, is now like, oh, you're just a conspiracy quack. Because if we were to take this and go, like right now, if we're like, look at the Secret Service, they're smiling. Can you believe it? And we use that as evidence to show that it's fake. It doesn't make it any less fake that they're not smiling. It doesn't. But if we were to talk about, oh, they're smiling, and that was our focus, it would make our credibility less, right? Because these are things that are happening. Now, some of the other stuff is like, people have pointed out some things that are pretty valuable, right? Like, okay, this shot here, I don't understand exactly where this blood is coming from because his hand has no blood on it. So the blood on his ear, the bullet would have gone from the front of his face to the back, right? Is what you would think. So where this blood came here, I'm not exactly sure if that's supposed to be from him slapping himself in the side of the face or what that's from. It almost looks like a bullet went on a pathway and just barely touched near his mouth, his cheek, and then hit his ear, right? It looks like the bullet is traveling upward. That was kind of my speculation on that. Not that I know anything about that. But the fact of the matter is, this is a staged, it's a manufactured crisis, right? It's designed to do this. And then it is trying to exalt Donald Trump into heroism, right? And from what I understand, the alleged white hats of the deep state, they're not white hats by any means, but they think they are. They thought this was going to generate a lot of money, right? They thought this would make them a lot of money in donations, but it didn't. It didn't give them the edge they thought it would, right? It didn't give them what they thought they would. So it's basically it's not really an assassination attempt. It's an attempt to vault Trump into the presidency, which he'd have a walkthrough. If the presidency was about voting, he'd be walking into the office right now. I mean, literally, he is running against the most inept human being I have ever seen in my life. The way they portray Joe Biden it's almost scary how simple-minded they make this guy. He can't finish sentences. He doesn't know who anybody is. He's referencing popcorn and a fight he got into in high school. He's talking to crowds of 5 people like there's a million, right? So that's kind of where we're at, with this whole thing. I don't
Look, nothing like I've been hearing from actual experts explaining about how the shot should look like. I've been hearing about people that are in the Secret Service and how, they should have been out of there by 10 seconds. The minute that happened, Trump or the person is not a person, they would get them out straight away. There's a lot of things out there that are just debunking this whole thing. Now, why they're doing it, I keep saying they're playing for the same team, all of them. The whole government is working together. At this point, that's why I didn't want to talk about this because, at the end of the day, who are you going to pick? What are you going to do? However, would love to know what is your opinions about the solutions, because I think we kind of know what's going on, but what's the solution here?
The solution is the same as it's always been. It's always been the same thing. Your power, all of your power is in your awareness of your power. The government draws its power from you. That's how the government's set up. That's how the Constitution is set up. It's like this around the world. There's not a government in the world that stays in power if the people don't want them there. The people stand up, it stops. But here's the thing. What is that movie that we watched? Tomorrowland. Tomorrowland has this great scene, right, where the kind of the evil dictator guy of Tomorrowland is going off, and he makes this great point though. He says, we've pointed out the problem, we've shown you how to fix it, and instead of showing you with the path you're going on, we've shown it to you, and the problem is why don't you do anything? Because instead you embrace it. We're all going to die. It's the apocalypse, it's the rapture, it's the end of the world. We're going to have a nuclear holocaust. All these, we embrace it because it just by embracing it and accepting it, it doesn't require anything of us today, right? But today is when you change things. Right now is when you make a decision. Okay, what can I do to contribute to make the world a better place, a place that I am thrilled that my children get to grow up in, right? Where I'm so excited that my children get to thrive in this amazing, magical world that we live in already. Our world is absolutely amazing. It is absolutely amazing. And we spend our time talking about this nonsense. Oh my gosh. Somebody called me a never Trumper today, who's a really good guy, a friend of mine. He's a truck driver. And, he actually he was actually at the June 6th event, right, in Washington, D.C., and they ended up hunting him down and putting him in jail for like 6 weeks over nothing. He had nothing. He just showed up at the event. He did nothing wrong, right? So real good guy. And he was saying to me, like we were going back and forth about this whole Trump fiasco. And he's like, you're such a never Trumper. I am so sick of this nonsense, and so should everyone be. Look, I remember that you have speech analysis experts, right? Speech analysis experts basically tell you at the level at which you are communicating. So who are you communicating with, right? So Barack Obama, who I didn't know was such an evil villain until after his presidency. I didn't know. I didn't know how bad he was until later. But during his presidency, he was considered to be the greatest speaker of all time, right? He was so impressive in the way he would speak. Now, he would say horrible things, but he would say them in such an intelligent way, it went right over my head so I always thought Obama was cool, or at least he was going to be cool. And I was learning towards the end of his presidency, like he was really just an evil, bastard. But Trump, right? What Trump did is he tapped into when he would speak, he speaks in a language at a third or fourth grade level, right? And I know I'm not trying to insult him. I'm saying he's brilliant for doing this, right? But think about it. This is what speech analysis would come up with. This is what they said. And so he would speak to people at this level. And what it did is it resonated on a level we could all relate to and understand. So think about it. The media is bad. Biden's bad. They're all trying to hurt me, right? These are the kind of things he would say. They're all trying to get me. They're all trying to hurt me, right? That's the kind of things that kids say, right? And it made sense to us because we could all see it. We're all watching it happen right in front of us. So he wasn't lying. All that stuff is true. They were trying to hurt him. The media is bad. The media is fake, right? Fake news. He just put very simple words together and just repeated them over and over and over and over. And that's really kind of, if you believed in the election process, how he won the first election. Now, I'm saying not that that makes him less. I'm saying that makes him brilliant. That move was brilliant. So all of this, my point is bullshit. And everyone should have part of them that's just sick of it, right? We should be at some point say, okay, what does it take? And this is the real question I have. So you asked the question, what's the solution? Okay. So here's my question back to you. And this is what I would like to know from anybody. What does it take for you? What does it take for you to do something about something? Like, we talk about this a lot with kids, right? If you're going to threaten a mom's kids, right, she's going to go full mama bear on you, right? You saw this happen when they were trying to force the kids to be vaccinated. You had millions of mothers come out. I mean, and it was fathers too, but I'm saying that movement was predominantly mothers. And I'm telling you, that convinced me wholeheartedly there is nothing more powerful on this planet than a mom with her child being threatened. It is the most powerful thing. It is amazing. Those mothers they'll be better researched, better spoken. They'll outsmart you in every way, more organized. They'll connect with each other everywhere. I mean, that is a force to be reckoned with. Well, they don't call themselves anti-vax moms. I call them anti-vax moms, right? But mothers who know their child is being threatened, right? They'll come together everywhere.
Yeah.
But what does it take for you? Like, what do you think it takes for people in general? Because that is what it'll take.
See, I feel like this is more your expertise. I'm like, to me, I'm just like, it's plain to see. Like, they're all playing for the same team. It's up to us. Now, when you hear that, it's up to me, it's a little bit like, what does that mean? It's up to me. Because this is the thing. While everyone else is telling you to pick this person, this one's our savior, this and that, no one's our savior except ourselves. So I want to hear a little bit more from you in regards to that, because this is something up your alley. You know, you spoke about the assemblies. I remember this is the whole reason why I'm here, was because I heard you speak about how to set up communities, you know, and I heard you talk about it, and the way you explained it, I was like, this is the only way. And at the time, I remember Ricardo Bossi in Australia. He was also talking about something a little bit similar. However, you guys were speaking about it, and it was a little bit more spiritual as well. I would love to hear, what do you think the solution is?
You know, there was this movie called Willow. It was like before like Lord of the Rings, right? And it was like this little kind of dwarf wizard in training. And like this more powerful wizard puts up his hand like this and he goes, which one of these fingers, which finger is the most powerful? Right? And he chews and chews and chews, and they're all wrong. Right? And he said, and then finally he asked Willow, he's like, what did you want to say? He goes, when you asked me which one, he goes, I didn't want to choose one of the fingers from your hand. I wanted to choose the finger from my own. Right? And he goes, and that was the right answer. So it's always stuck with me. I remember seeing that when I was a kid, right? The difference always comes down to what are you willing to do, right? What does it take to see power, to have power, to be in a position to make the world a better place, to be in a position where you're at the table and you are part of contributing to make a difference? Well, that takes people that are willing to put the time in, put the energy in, put the heart and love in, and use their gifts, right? Everybody has different gifts, right? You know, you have these people in your neighborhood, in your circle. You have one person who connected everybody, right? Who everybody thinks is their best friend, right? There's one person, you got 6 people in that group. They all think that they're best friends with that person. That person makes every person in that group feel like they're best friends. That person is your connector. That person goes out and they can convince anybody. They can talk to anybody about any topic, and everybody wants to do what they're doing. Find that person or be that person. That's the first. Because the reality is, if we're going to change things on our level, right? We talk about the world situation reports with Kimberly Ann Gogan on UnitedNetwork.Earth a lot, because the things that are happening on a massive spiritual level are absolutely incredible. They open up the opportunity for everyone to change the world. They really do. And the thing is that's not something that resonates with everyone, because it's so far beyond anything they've ever heard of or thought of, right? It's
Yeah.
like it's like we probably need to have flying cars, let's say, before we introduce portal travel. Right? Like, we got to kind of ease into it a little bit. So some of the things that Kim Gogan talks about are just so absolutely incredible, and I believe true. I believe they're true, but they're so absolutely incredible that they don't appeal to everybody. They don't make sense to everybody, right? Because and that's part of the challenge. So you want to grab people that are connectors. Yes.
I think it's not that people cannot understand it or kind of not, I don't think it's necessary that much. I think there's also people out there that are like, I want to see proof. And look, trust me, I do believe that Kim is real, but I don't think we're just up against that. I think a lot of people are like, I want to see proof. I want to see changes. You claim this and this hasn't come through. So people have been asking a lot of questions in regards to things that she has said and hasn't fallen through. But one of the things that you said the other day that I thought was really incredible, and I thought, you know what, this is something that we need to talk about, is things that she has said, done. We haven't always agreed with that, correct? Like, I can say I've seen things and I'm like, I wouldn't have gone that way, or there was some stuff there. So, but you said something the other day in regards to her being a strategist, and sometimes in that job, sometimes you have to do that. It's better coming from your words. So can you please just explain that a little bit more? Of, you've worked with her, and you're a pretty smart guy, and what do you think?
Yeah. Kim is for sure a strategist. So she has kept this incredible bounty of her work behind a paywall. She has spoken to, the entire deep state order as she's eliminating them. She's used information to direct them one way and go, and while she's going another way, or direct them to the way that she wants them to go. And I mean, it's obvious how she's played them over and over and over again. To anybody watching, how skillful she is with the information she puts out, when she puts it out, when she shares it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these are things that aren't commonly fully understood by anybody, to be honest. But one of the arguments that you just made, which I think is a great point, and I'm going to prove that's not true. I'm going to prove that evidence wouldn't do anything. Jesus, right? We've heard of Jesus. Jesus in his ministry, whether you believe that to be true or not, there's some aspect of it. I think everybody believes is true.
Messiah, yeah.
The Messiah, Sananda, Yahshua, Emmanuel, the individual who was alive in that time and did many miracles in front of people.
Mm-hmm.
Did it yield the incredible results that you would expect? No, it didn't. Did it give birth to Christianity? Yeah. And was that perverted and taken over and changed in a lot of ways? Yeah, it was. Did it lead to world peace? Absolutely not. Did they believe him? A small portion did, but those were the same small portion that ultimately crucified him. Now, I'm just basing it on the stories in the Bible, the way they're told. Okay. So I know a lot of people don't agree with that. So just take it in context. I'm just using that as an example. Now, that's a physical, that's a example that's way back, right? And you think, what did it do, right? How did it change things? But I'm going to give you a more current example. In 1968, around there, Dr. Henry Clifford Kinley walked into the death wards. That's where the wards where you had people dying of cancer, of all types of terminal illness in Cincinnati and Cleveland, Ohio. And he cleared out the hospitals by healing people. Cleared out. Now imagine whole hospitals cleared out of people that were on their deathbed. I'll bet you most people here have never even heard that name. You'd think that guy'd be famous, right? We'd be talking about it everywhere. Like, oh my gosh. At least be talking about, like, is this magic? Is this a new healing modality? Is this Jesus? Wouldn't you think that something like that, an event like, now that is documented historically. That actually happened. He cleared out the hospitals in Cleveland and Cincinnati. The whole hospitals went in and cleared out the whole death wards. Healed every single person. Now, and there's people, I've spoken to people who were healed, by the way. So that's not speculation. That happened. So think about this. Has anyone even heard of that name? No. Why? Because the evidence that you think would prove something, that would show beyond a shadow of a doubt, there's something special here. There's something we got to pay attention to. Even when people saw it with their own eyes, it didn't have lasting results. It didn't have an impact. Why? The reason why these things don't change is because you weren't part of it. The only thing that we really believe is what we hear in our own voice. It's what we tell ourselves to ourselves. And as we repeat things and believe things and show things within ourselves, when we prove it to ourselves, when we prove to ourselves that we can change the world, when we prove to ourselves that we can connect people that have the like mind, and we can grab more people and we can grow, when we prove it to ourselves, then we believe. So where does the real change come from? It comes from when you are willing to make a commitment to yourself and stick to it. I mean, think of how lazy we are in our mentality. We want to get fit. And day one, we say, okay, I'm sticking to the diet. I'm going to eat nothing but greens and grilled chicken, right? I'm going to work out first thing in the morning. I'm telling you, this is how it goes. What happens that day? That day you get up to work out and you are the tiredest you've ever been. You were going to start working out that day. What happened that day? You're like, I am so exhausted. I just need another 45 minutes of sleep and I'll be okay. And that day at the office, they order pizza for lunch. You got salad with chicken, but they got pizza for lunch. And you think to yourself, I could be miserable. I can sit here and eat my chicken and salad, but I'm going to draw attention. People are going to ask me, what are you doing? I'm going to tell them I'm on a diet. There's going to be a whole conversation. Now I don't even want to talk about it. I'm just going to have pizza. I'm just going to fit in. Right. Now, by the end of the day, you feeling terrible. You feeling guilty. You didn't stick to it. By day 2, where's your head at? Right? You might quit. Right? Now, you might stick with it longer than that, but that is the way we are. We make commitments to ourselves. We're not even willing to commit to those. How could we possibly make a commitment to change the world if we don't keep a simple commitment to change ourselves? So, number one solution, stop looking to people like Donald Trump to make it better for you. They are trying to hurt you. They don't even think about you. I don't care what anybody says. They are not thinking about you one bit. Matter of fact, it's proven. Donald, allegedly, now I don't even know what happened here, but allegedly there was 2 casualties at this event. So they were trying to shoot Donald Trump. They killed somebody else. As far as I know, Donald Trump didn't even acknowledge it. Didn't even recognize that somebody else was killed. Did that happen? I don't know. That's the problem with this. We don't know anything to be real except what we experience ourselves. So unless we know we're real, so you want to make a difference in the world, Let's make the world the real world, right? Let's have a vision of a real world order, real world. And how do we make it real? Be real. Real recognizes real, right? That's how it works. I see somebody that's real, I'm like, I know you're real because I'm real. Right. So if you're real like that, if you're real and willing, put the time in. Show me with your testimony, with your walk through life. You know, people use that word testimony all the time, right? Your walk, right? Your walk through life is what defines you. The way you walk through life is what people will remember. And the more the way that you walk, let's talk about everything you say, you do, you experience, you are part of. Not only that, but the mistakes you make. Mistakes don't define you unless you let them crush you. Then that's all you're known for. But it's how you respond to things. It's how you come back from things. It's how, okay, like I did this wrong, I went this path, but I'm back on. And it's just, it's the same way with the diet, right? I always think diet and exercise is just such a simple way to explain anything, right? Because everybody can relate to it. Everybody's wanted to lose some weight or get in shape or do something and feel better about themselves. And they tried something and it didn't work out. But just get back on track. Get back on track. Get back on. Like if you go, I do this with my dog. The dog is always pulling off this one. I'm like, come back. Just get on the track that you want to be the person you want to be. Change the world from the inside out. And what will happen is when people see you changing you, right? Get your own house in order. Get your own stuff together. And what happens, that'll touch other people. That touches other people. Now, when you bring something up, all of a sudden everybody's listening to what you're saying because like, well, I saw you do it.
Mhm.
I saw you do it. So how do we change it? Stop listening to people up on a podium Trump, to me, what a freaking joke. How did this billionaire become the underdog? Right? You've got billions of dollars, right? You've got a show where you were famous before this for telling people they were fired, right? Trump, like you had money. You were born with money. You spent money and you made money, and you've always had money. And somehow, truck drivers are like, yeah, Trump, he gets me. No, he doesn't get you. He doesn't get you. He doesn't think about you. He doesn't care about you. No, he does not. Neither does Biden. I struggle with RFK Jr. because I had actually heard that RFK Jr. was running the Order of the Black Sun behind the scenes. And he's actually so I don't know. See, that's a problem. When you know, like I know a lot about this stuff on the backside. The problem is the more I know, the less I know. And be honest.
Look, at this point, I'm sorry, I've heard enough. I've seen enough. I just don't see that he is one of the good guys. And not only that, I follow my gut. And, and something just tells me something's not right. I don't trust any of them. I trust in myself and I trust in people that really want to do what's right by their people. All these other people, there's always something there. You're selling your soul to the devil. That's what I see. That's what, I hear the way they talk and I'm just like, do you think we're idiots? And look, I'm not political at all. But one thing is I see all these people and I'm like, I actually get really excited that Kim says that she's able to change it and put whoever she wants in there. I'm just like, great. This is coming the time that it's like make or break it. By November, we'll find out exactly what's really going on. Like November's the deadline. That's the way I see it. So,
but you know what? I think that's a great point. So talk about it. So Kimberly Ann Gogan is the ground commander. She is the comptroller, the guardian of the planet, right? This is the highest position in the world on all of Earth, right? She talked about how the entire election system is really a selection system. It's always been that way. They choose who's going to be in that seat and who's going to be president or whatever. And then they're, this kind of puppet that does what they're told. which has never been more clear than with Joe Biden, who I'm not even sure what he's doing. But she said she now took control of the ballot system, right?
Mm-hmm.
So because the ballot system was always rigged, right? This is what, why Hillary Clinton destroyed her servers, right? Because hackers allegedly broke into the system and allowed the election. So allegedly this was, Trump was the first supposed to be real elected president, right? Like in his first term. Then he beat Hillary Clinton because Hillary Clinton was supposed to win, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the George Soros voting machines were hacked, allegedly, right? This is all just speculation, right? They were hacked, and suddenly it went the other way, and Trump won by a landslide, right?
Really? I thought, again, I was in Australia at the time, so I'm only knowing what I know from what I heard from whatever people was around me or what was on YouTube or so on. That was rigged. I thought you guys elected Trump, because at that time we were laughing at United States, because we were like, listen, that means anyone can be a president if you elected this guy. So,
yes, it does.
yes,
it does.
What is this? But really, I didn't know that actually.
Well, every election was rigged, including every election in Australia. I mean, have you seen the people that you put up there? I mean, come on. Like,
Ricardo, we're not talking about Australia here, okay?
Wait a minute.
First of all,
I really like Ricardo Vossi. I really like Ricardo Vossi. If it was a fair election, I really think he would be whatever position he was running for, he'd win.
I don't know I know that a lot of people have said stuff about him. However, the man that I have met, he is incredible and he has a beautiful, beautiful heart. The things that he, like, especially like when we did the network, he was like, I support you 150%, because I actually was going to either work for him or you. And I chose to work with you. So, I have a lot of respect for him.
Yeah. And my experience, well, now what I've seen from Ricardo Vossi now, I don't know. But what I know is he's run for office a couple times and not won, right?
Okay, yes, no.
He has not won. And he runs on the Australian One Party. And I'm telling you, if an election was real, he would win. He's such a compelling, intelligent guy. Like, that's the kind of guy you want calling the shots. Someone who actually knows what's going on. Someone who, like, now, even if that's just his TV persona, which I don't think it is. I think that's genuinely who he is, right? He might have some secrets, but you know what I've seen too, very consistent. He's very, very consistent and done it on a budget, right? But if an election was fair, I think Ricardo Vossi would be the president or whatever the position is. Prime Minister in Australia, right? Now, so every single election is absolute bollocks. It is nonsense. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't matter if we got everybody. I thought about this. Laura and I talked about this. I was like, maybe I can run for president, right? And like, I'll just put my name on the ballot, right?
What do we need?
I was like, maybe I could convince Kim to just give all these votes to me, right? Like, I don't want anything to do with that. We're just kind of playing around, right? But like, honestly, the idea. So Kim talked about this. She talked about putting Jill Stein in there because she likes Jill Stein. She's like, at least Jill Stein is real, right? She's actually a real person. And I think she runs on the Green Party, maybe.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, she's one of the. There's people talk about the two major candidates, but there's like 100 candidates actually for president running.
Well, that's what I was asking you. I thought there was only a few. I was like, how many do you usually have? And you're like, there's heaps. And I'm like, okay, so there's plenty to pick from. And you were saying yes, because again, I keep hearing everyone keeps talking about Biden and Trump. I'm like, but no one's really seen Robert F. Kennedy. Robert F. Kennedy.
Yeah.
No one's really talking about him. That I'm thinking like he's creeping there, and I'm like, I'm not really liking this. But again, it's like there are other people to pick. But it comes down to, let's just say, comes down to November. Kim can put whoever she wants in there. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's what she said. She said she put 200 million votes for Jill Stein, which I thought was hilarious. I'd love for her to do that. I think that would be great.
Mhm.
I mean, not that I don't know anything about Jill Stein, but the point is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. These characters they're putting up there
Why doesn't
now.
it matter? Can I ask you, why doesn't it matter?
Well, okay, I'll give you an example. They've been approving budgets for the U.S. government over and over and over again, right?
Mhm.
Now, about 3 years ago, we got the budget. I was working with Kim at the time, and we got the full budget. Now, normally civilians don't get to see the budget. She gave us the full budget. I put together like 30 people, and we analyzed the budget, and we cut out all the fat. This budget was like a $3 trillion budget. It referenced in this ridiculous budget, it referenced bills, like laws that had expired in the 90s. It had all types of things to basically enslave us, to approve machinery that would spy on us at all times. There were so many things that it took a couple weeks to have this 30 people to go through this, right? But you could tell nobody goes through it. They just recycle the same paperwork, submit it, and they just approve it. And then what they would have happen is they would bring money down from the off ledger accounts, and they'd get allocation numbers, and then, hey, we have a budget, we have money, and they'd go spend it on whatever they wanted. That's why you have things like the Pentagon that would have, $1 trillion go missing with the Pentagon in the black ops budget. They're like, we don't know where it went. We built a factory, right? Like, how do you not account for $1 trillion, right? So we were working with all these different things, so I've seen it. They're not advocating for you. They're funding the deep state. They're funding their black operation to rule the world, and they're using your energy, your money in this indentured servitude system to essentially fuel their machine, right? So why doesn't it matter? Because they're not doing anything for you. They're not doing anything for you. That's why when they approve these budgets and then they can't decide, they're arguing back and forth, and they do this publicly. We're going back and forth. We're going to have a government shutdown. And when the government shuts down, does anyone even notice? Does anyone even care? Like, government shuts down, it's like, okay. Like, and now what? Like, what do you guys do exactly? Because when you shut down, it doesn't seem like anything really changes. I just have less boring people on television telling me about boring things that they're doing. They're not doing anything to contribute to your day-to-day life. Now, is there federal programs that are valuable, like Social Security and welfare and things? Yeah, sure, there is. But I'm pretty sure that those things can be managed by Kim and the Global Repository and the new care program. And basically you could have program, and that's what's going to happen with the new Life Essentials program, which is basically going to make all forms of healthcare. There's life essentials and life assurance. Life essentials is like, so if you have, you work as a maid, but you don't quite make enough money to pay the bills, Life Essentials will subsidize your income. So you'll have enough money to pay your bills and be comfortable. Brilliant, right? Pretty simple. That way you don't lose people in key positions that you need, and someone can continue to do what they're doing, but now they can live comfortably and they have a nice, beautiful home and they can do what they want, right?
Why wouldn't they just put their wage up higher?
Well, you kind of need wages to maintain a certain level. So like, I'm not sure. I mean, you could, but who's going to pay it? It's not like the employer's not making more money.
But if we're going to if this whole thing is to start all over, shouldn't that be something to be under consideration of well, then the wages have to change. I know in South America, I remember speaking to my family over there, and when I was doing business there, I would ask them questions like, hey, how much is this and how much is that? Or I would go there, and it's not like it's anything different. It's the same thing that I have in Australia. However, it's more expensive in Chile to buy it. So they get the no frills, which I don't know what no frills is. It means like cheap brand, which is like the country. Yeah, like the country's brand. They would have that. And then I would ask them, I've got uncles and family members over there, and I would say, so how much is your electricity? How much is, water, your houses? And I'm like, and how much do you get paid? And when they told me how much it was, I was like, how do you survive? And I'm like, that's where I'm like, if we're going to change everything, shouldn't it start with the wages of how everyone's getting paid? Because
yeah, I mean, it's all part of a grander plan. I mean, yes, wages have to change. You need to pay people so you can have one income run a family. You need, but you have to think about all the. Okay, wages don't fix it, right? Because you can't just change wages. You have to change. Okay, what are we like? For example, education.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Education should not be controlled by the government. Education starts at home. So you first have to say, you are now responsible to educate your children. Right?
But okay, you're going with that. But there are good teachers out there that, do want to teach. Not all parents.
What are they teaching? They're teaching the same manufactured curriculum across the board. They do this in every country. Everybody has a manufactured history. They have the same busted math. They don't teach about quantum physics. There's whole branches of science they don't even teach.
But that's where shouldn't CARE come in and actually be like, this is what we're going to teach?
Yeah, absolutely.
And change it. Because instead of going, it now needs to be all homeschooled, some kids need to be around each other. You can't just be, look how what happened in COVID. How many kids went through anxiety? They're still recovering today because of what happened. I know we can't be saying that, but they're still recovering. So I don't know if it's just that. I'm like, my thing is that excites me is that all these things are going to be changing from our education to financially, the financial system, it is completely changing and everything has to change. You have to restructure it all everywhere. So that's where I'm like, I understand where you're coming from.
These are the things that are. Point. My point is, like, what you're saying is valid.
Okay, good.
Right. But how do you prevent CARE from becoming your savior? And
well, no. The thing is, in my opinion, Kim hasn't opened up that door just of yet. There's a reason she hasn't opened up that door. However, this is where I'm like, this is where the people need to be starting to, what are you good at? Write up a plan. If you're really good in, for example, knowing how to grow plants, or you are really good in physics, you just have this gift. Shouldn't you be like, okay, not even that, like your projects. Like, this is where I'm like, she hasn't opened up the door to anyone.
So my point that you're making for me, like what you're saying is making my point. The reason why I said you're responsible to educate your kids.
Okay.
You are responsible to. No, this is true no matter what, by the way. No, I don't mean educating. Like
they need to.
It doesn't matter what it is. First off, you're responsible to educate your kids. I'm just using that as a base point. It applies to everything. Your rights that you have, they are your responsibility. If you want to change the world, take responsibility for your rights. Now, you have the right to have children. Nobody talks about that. What an amazing right. They want to take that right from you. They want to take that right from you. Your right to have kids. That's why they've been trying to reduce the population. They've been trying. The Rothschilds had a vision that if they got every child, they'd raise them to be exactly what they wanted them to be. So they want to take your right to raise your children. So it's an amazing thing when you think about it, right? We think it's just God given, which it is. It is, but that's something they were trying to take from you, right? Now that's never going to happen. However, think about it. If that's your right, now don't you think you should make the best of that? Like, and take responsibility for it in every possible way, right? Educate your children so that we have good people in the world. What does that look like? Well, this is where it gets challenging, right? Because it all depends on what we've been told. So now you start with the children. Start with the children. Build everything around the children. Build your communities, your organizations, everything around what is best for the children, because they're growing quick and time doesn't stop for them. So it'll be gone in a heartbeat. So you have to think quickly this way. Now, so you start thinking for the kids, right? Build around the kids. Let's think about it. Start with, are we protecting our kids? Child Protective Services is a child trafficking organization authorized and condoned by the government up to feed and various perverse practices and satanic rituals. That is an absolute fact, whether you like it or not. Is there good people in Child Protective Services? I'm certain there are. I'm certain there are. Not everyone in Child Protective Services is bad. However, if you want to protect your children and the next generation and the generation after that and 7 generations down, just like the Iroquois would say, 7 generations down, then what you need to do is you need to start from your community, come together and say, what do we need our children to know? What is important and essential to our children? And I'm telling you, everything else comes from there. What do we need? What do we as parents need to? So because you quickly start to realize, okay, the first question that comes up is, I don't know. I'm not sure what my kids need to know. Help me. What do I need to know? So you need to start now. You naturally need to start talking to other people in your community. What do you think is important? What do you think is important? What do you think is important for our kids? Now we're having a conversation. Now we're all concerned about the same thing, because the one thing we all have in common, we've all been a kid. We know what it's like to be scared, to be alone and not know what to do, to try to fit in, to try to be something more, to try to grow up, to try to move through this, navigate through life, right? Start with the kids. The kids it's not just that the kids are our future. It's us realizing that by protecting the kids, taking care of the kids, looking for the kids, and considering the kids in everything we do now creates this amazing world. Because I made a place. First, I'm going to make, what do I need? Well, as a parent, I need a place for my kids to be. I need a place that's safe. So how do I know that what makes a safe place? There's another topic. Do you see how I'm setting up your first community meeting for you? What's the first thing? Safety. How do we keep the kids safe? Well, we educate every person in this building, that every person in this community, we all protect the kids. Now, when you live in a community where everybody's looking out for the kids, you know what you have? A safer community. A community where people trust each other. A community where the kids are acting up and the neighbor down the street says, I just saw your son riding on the roof of the car with his friends. I'm letting you know. So that kid, when he gets home, gets his car taken away. Why? Because that kid's behavior is reckless and it's hurting my kid, potentially, right? Now we have less kids riding on the roof of the car, right? And we're all looking out for each other. Now, that's a ridiculous example. That actually happened to me when I was a kid. I was riding on the roof of the car, and my mom found out. So that actually was my personal experience. That's what I'm saying. I lived in a very safe community, very safe community. But my point is, we build around the kids. You build around the kids, you start to ask questions. What do my kids need to know to thrive in this world? I don't know. When do they need to know? Right? For example, I'm a firm believer we should have a flexible educational model. You should have it so boys and girls, when they're little, they have different needs. So when you take all these kids and you say, look, you all have to sit here in this classroom and you have to listen to this lecture, this teacher talk. I know when I was a little boy, I was going crazy, but the girls seemed to eat it up. They loved it at that age, right? They seem to be fine at that age. I'm not saying it's always that way. You know what? You give a flexibility to what the kid needs. Now, it might not be all girls or all boys, but maybe they need an environment that's more hands-on. Of course, these are kids. Get them outside. Get their hands dirty. Teach them how to, what fish are by going fishing. Teach them what's out in nature by showing them nature. This is what our model should be. Now, that's just the education. Now, if that's what the educational model was, you know what? That's a little more aggressive. I can't have one teacher for 25 or 30 students if you're going to be taking my kids out in the woods. So what do we need? Now let's change that. How many kids can one person handle? 5? So now you got 5 teachers in a classroom with 25 kids, right? Now this is how you make changes that are considerate of the world that we want to create. These are the things that you need. And you realize how much more valuable people are. Teachers are, kids are, your family is. Everyone's more valuable. That's the key to everything. Put value on yourself and on others, and we can create a better world together. That's how we do it, though. And we need to start having those conversations more and more and more. And I'm telling you right now, just like the repetition of your heartbeat, you don't ever get tired of it. Your heart does the same thing over and over again, blah, 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 blah. And you're never talking about, okay, enough repetition with the heartbeat. It keeps you alive. Now, by us repeating this stuff and repeating these same conversations with other people over and over again in bigger communities with one another, more and more and more and more, we create and generate a better life for ourselves and for everyone else. How's that for a solution? That makes sense?
It does,
Is
Mr.
that the
Al.
question you were asking? Am I on the right track?
Yes,
I got a
Mr.
million
Al.
things to talk about with this, but
So,
go ahead. So
pardon?
I got a million ways and
you have a
different
million
things
things.
I want to do with this and talk about with this. It's so important. That's what the Life Force movement is all about. Bringing us together to change the world. Finding ways to do it.
I want to hear.
We need more people to stand up, contribute, make a difference. We can't just wait for somebody else. We'll find ourselves in the same situation with a savior complex again. Waiting for someone else to change things. Waiting for someone else to do something for us, whether it's Donald Trump, Joe Biden, or even Kim Gogan. Doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we have to take responsibility for ourselves, for each other. And I mean for ourselves and each other. There is nothing wrong, and I didn't know this. The people who are willing to take responsibility for themselves and others in the beginning, it's harder because you're responsible for more people and they don't know yet. But if you're willing to do it, the benefit is greater. If you're willing to stand up and be part of something bigger than yourselves, if you're willing to stand up and make something bigger than yourself, you start to realize that you are much bigger than you thought you were. Emotionally, energetically, I don't mean like weight, that you're bigger, you're more important, that you have something to give, you have something to contribute that's much bigger than you realized. But I'm telling you, you got to be willing to make that first commitment to yourself. Make a commitment to yourself to be better. Make a commitment to change your world. Make a commitment to find others who want to do the same thing. That's what we're doing here. And that's what we're trying to do with you. So please support what we're doing and watch our shows, share them with people, and help us expand out of this. We are going to put our network back up soon. We had to take a break because this has been a road that we've been pushing down for a long time. But I'll tell you what, my favorite character in the Bible is Caleb. Caleb, he was one of the 12 spies who went up into the Canaan's land. And when they came back, 10 of the spies were like, we can't take the land. There's giants in the land. It's too big. They're too scary. It's too much. But Caleb, he said, let's go. He said, I'm ready. He said, if God be with us, before us, who can be against us? He said, I'm ready today. Let's go. And he had no fear. Then, because of their disbelief, God made them wander in the wilderness for 40 years. For 40 years, they wandered in the wilderness. And after 40 years, now Caleb's an old man now, 40 years later, Caleb said, I am just as ready today as I was 40 years ago. He said, let's go. And he was still ready. And that's how I feel. I am still just as fired up today as I've ever been about this. We can change the world, and it all starts with us. So have a mentality like Caleb. Let's go. Let's go change the world. So my name is Stephen Rao. This is Life Force Network. Lauda, thank you so much. Appreciate you as always. Anything else that I need to reference? We're good. Okay, everybody, let's go change the world.